what do I tell entrepreneurs? I tell them, this is what you signed up for. Like to really go there, what I tell fellow entrepreneurs is like, this is our time. Like when things are challenging, when they're difficult, when they're not stable, is exactly when entrepreneurs do well. A real entrepreneur, I don't like using the word real, but like an entrepreneur, not someone over the last decade when it got cooler decided they wanted to be one, but an entrepreneur. It's like being a fish and now here's the water. Like to me, this is our time. This is when you have to navigate. This is all we know. Like you've signed up for a world where you have to react to realities on a daily basis and it's all on your accountable shoulders. And then when they're incapable of going there, I deploy perspective and gratitude. I remind my friends, some who've been struggling, that if COVID started 6 weeks earlier, Kobe Bryant would be alive. You can decide to look at all the bad, go look at the traffic deaths data around the world. You start getting into scary debates of were more people's lives saved during this time than lost. It's half glass full, half glass empty. You start getting into really interesting, thoughtful places. And so for me, it's perspective. I think about World War II. I think about the Black Plague. I think about so many genocides. I think about the people and the millions of people around the world that don't have clean water every day, not when there's not COVID. I'm not capable of dwelling because of gap. Gratitude, accountability, like what am I gonna do about it? And perspective. And so what do I say? I say we should be thankful that we can even have this conversation, health over everything. And let's move forward.
I love that gap concept. So gratitude, we get gratitude. Tell us about accountability.
Accountability is tricky because people confuse accountability with lack of compassion. And I don't see it that way. I view accountability as what can I control? And so, when things like this happen, people blame. People want to blame China. People want to blame their own government. People want to blame their boss, their spouse, the system. And oftentimes there's validity in those things. The question becomes, what are you going to do about it? You can go political and talk about voting. You can talk about people that are in really suppressed places about leaving if they can. Some places you can't even leave, but leaving if you can. For me, it's accountability. What can I do? When a lot of in a very small, not as heady conversation, when my company is in trouble when COVID hits because clients are telling us they're not going to pay, they have to reduce scopes. First I stop paying myself. Then I stop wasting money on dumb stuff. So I look at all our expenses. Then unfortunately, the worst of the bunch, I have to let some people go so the whole company can pay its bills. Life. And so I like accountability. Like I like, what am I gonna do about it? And I don't think it's fun or healthy to feel helpless. And I think it leads to a lot of bad things. That doesn't mean that I don't have compassion for people that are in precarious positions. It's just that I think it's very empowering for people to try to hack, to think, what are they gonna do?
Now, the final one was perspective, the P.
We've already touched on that, which is I use perspective and gratitude a lot. My perspective leads to gratitude. It could be worse, right? My perspective is it could be worse.
So as you went through this disruptive period, like what were some of the life lessons, the big insights that you gained?
I got affirmation from who I think I am, ironically, oh my God, today is 9/11. So 9/11 was the first major event I had to navigate through as a leader. I was a very young kid in a family business. Then there was the Great Recession in 2008. These are macro things. As an entrepreneur and operator, every day you're dealing with micro things, lawsuits, somebody's family's issues, clients, employees, but macro, 9/11, Great Recession. But I always, in the back of my mind, my friend, knew one thing. 9/11, I was a kid. I had no expenses. The Great Recession, the reality was I built the business for my dad, not for myself the first time. So even in 2008, I really didn't have a lot. I had an apartment, but not a whole lot. I didn't have kids yet. So I always knew in the back of my mind that I was a great entrepreneur and I was fearless and I put everything on my back, but I really didn't have a lot to lose. So I always wondered, what would happen? Not what would, when the next big thing happens. This is me 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. When that happens, am I gonna be as good navigating when I'm clearly losing things, money, leisure, who knows what, status, whatever it may be, fun. And the biggest thing I learned is I'm built for this shit. I'm born for this, I went right into the place where I needed to be. I knew what my requirement was as a leader. So I got affirmation of my intuition of who I am. And I think I'm a wartime general. I think I'm at my best when it's most adverse. We're not entitled to have everything come easy. I don't know why people think we are. It's not part of the life, journey. Like, look at history, bad things happen and really, really bad things happen. And I think people have become too materialistic and have gotten complicated in their need for acknowledgement from outside forces based on commercial successes or what car they drive, status. We're a very deeply, globally, a very deeply insecure animal. And we need other people's opinions for validation. And I wish people could get validation from their process, not from the things that their process allows them to buy to make them look good to others. So, I've learned some human truths that were suspicions. And I also learned that every situation's different. I'm speaking in generalities right now. There's 7 billion people, plenty of people have excelled, plenty of people don't need a BMW to look cool, they just like how it drives. More affirmation around me knowing that there are thematics I'm passionate about and I'm sharing them now, but every individual is different going through their own cycle. And I have a lot of compassion and empathy for that.
Do you still believe in the hustle?
Absolutely. Now, I think the word, when I used it in 2009 a lot, meant hard work. Mm-hmm. I think the word has been manipulated in society in the last half decade to mean burnout, and so I've switched using it more in a world of people, when a word changes its meaning to a large group of people, you have to acknowledge that. So I use the word work ethic a lot more. I will forever believe in work ethic. There's nothing accomplished without the execution. And I believe in work ethic, and I'm not to the expense of someone's health or mental status, but I'm a very, very big advocate. I would argue that I believe in work ethic more today than I did a decade ago.
So if you had to break it down, right? When you say work ethic, what does that look like for you? How you came up with that acronym GAP? What is work ethic for you?
It's like we can all agree that there's a certain amount of liquid in this bucket, right?
Uh-huh.
To me, that's work ethic. There is everyone in here, and reading these incredible comments, observations, questions, everybody in here is got different skill sets in different things. So if I put in 7 hours a day into learning how to cook, over time I could be a much, much better cook, but I may not be as great as Jason Holzer or Jan McKinney or Anna, because they just actually had talent along with their work ethic. So there is a talent work ethic thing, but it takes an enormous amount of work to be Beyonce or LeBron, and or probably every single person, here, right? Every one of us are gonna really struggle to not recognize that the hours put into our craft, our execution, the time you put into your children, your employees, making this, trying to figure out the formula for this. For me, it's listening. I spend so much time listening. Everybody sees me talking all the time, but I spend 90% of my time listening. It's why I have early observations on things. And so I work at that. That's me putting in 4 hours last night, reading Twitter, Instagram, forums, Reddit, like I read people's comments. This is why I have a poll. So I'm an anthropologist. I'm a strategist that way. So, I believe in it. I believe it's putting in the work. It's like push-ups. I think everyone here working on their craft and things of that nature, doing push-ups. If you do 8 of them, certain things happen. If you do 80 of them a day, a different thing happens. Now, we all have different muscle composition, so some of us may show more, but the work is the work is the work. It does matter.
Oh my God, that is so interesting, because 10 years ago, you told me that you literally respond to every customer email. Like back then it was email, right? This was like 10 years ago when you were running Wine Library TV.
And by the way, my friend, the reason the Garyvee thing happened was the 4 years on Twitter where I replied to everybody who tweeted me and reached out to people talking about wine and then social media. Like there is no people know who I am without the work I put in to establish context. And then my upside was predicated on how much value I was providing. I put in the work, but if all the things I've been saying through the years was to get people to come into my funnel and sign up for my course,
right,
or like if I wasn't doing the right thing by people, or I have the receipts, they're all on the internet. You go look back at my stuff that I talked about in 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, a remarkable percentage became true. That's gonna give me affirmation of a reputation. People talk about personal brand and then people are like, I hate that term. I'm like, call it what you want. It's called your reputation. Me being right about a lot of things was better for me than me being wrong about those things.
Like, what is it that you wake up every day excited to do and to give to the world?
I have this weird blend of guilt and gratitude that I was gifted circumstances and an ability to communicate. And I want to leave that. I want to leave that. I want that legacy selfishly. And I'm addicted to admiration, right? And I think that admiration is only earned. Admiration doesn't come that they're like, let me rephrase. My definition of admiration is you don't get admiration unless you really do something really meaningful, deep. Like I'm amazed by athletes. I'm amazed by certain people's general beauty. I'm amazed by people's abilities to build companies or incredible art. But for me to admire someone, that means they've done something that really touched my soul. Like they're incredibly just kind and generous and just their humanity is on a scale above the rest. And I'm very focused on trying to create that. Now, that comes at the contrast of being a businessman. That's not where the world is looking at businesses, but it is my truth. I love doing business and I love nice. I'm addicted to nice. So I want to leave a legacy where people feel compelled to come to my funeral one day or tell their daughter a story or whatever the social network of the day is or however we communicate, to say something nice. I want to do that. I want to live that life. That is super interesting to me.